Hello again to another Agakala Reacts, and today we're watching Why Nobody Lives in Alaska from Something Different Films. And well, I'm kinda interested. I know there's not their population. Alaska, it's a massive state. It's a massive land, and I probably can't even comprehend how big it is. And I know they have very small population. And I am watching the couple from Alaska. Well, actually, they're originally from California, and then they moved to Oregon, and then they moved to Alaska. Their channel's name is Simple Living Alaska. It's Ariel and Eric, and I watch all of their videos, and I really enjoy their life there. Although I probably wouldn't decide to move to Alaska and do what they're doing, but I do like to watch them. So let's just jump into it. Let's just watch Why Nobody Lives in Alaska. Although I have my suspicions it's about the cold, the weather, and the hardship of living there. Let's see.
This is Alaska, and this is the United Kingdom, Germany, Japan, and France. All major world powers with gross domestic products in the trillions and at least 65 million residents each. Here's the thing though, the state of Alaska isn't just larger than each of these powerful nations individually. No, it's about 12.5% larger than all four of them combined. In fact, Alaska is only smaller than 15 of the world's 193 UN recognized countries. So you may be thinking that Alaska should have a population similar to nations like the United Kingdom, not just its fellow US states.
That logic would kind of says, but
because while Alaska is more than 6 times the size of the United Kingdom, for instance, its population of 736,000 residents is about 98% smaller. And even the relatively modest state of
I'm gonna say, I thought there would be more than a million, well, at least a few million living there from looking at the size, but 700,000, that's a tiny population for such a big land, isn't it?
Pennsylvania has a population that outnumbers Alaska's by about 20-fold. Meaning that Alaska has a population more in line with moderately popular US cities than nations or powerhouse states, with just the city core of San Antonio having a population that about doubles the entire massively sized state of Alaska. To understand why that is and how Alaska has so few residents, especially for a state of its considerable size, we should rewind back through Alaskan history so that we can properly evaluate this predicament it finds itself in today. The history of modern Alaska started when the United States purchased it from Russia for $7.2 million in 1867. Now, Alaska hadn't yet become a state back then. No, it was known as the Territory of Alaska all the way up until January 3rd, 1959, when Alaska and Hawaii, surprisingly enough, became the 49th and 50th US states, respectively. Of course, a lot happened in that 92 years between Alaska's purchase and its statehood, though. Gold was discovered in 1880, Juneau was incorporated in 1900, Fairbanks was incorporated in 1903, Anchorage was founded in 1915. Denali National Park was created just 2 years later in 1917. The Alaskan Railroad was completed in 1923. And
so
the
National Park was done before the railroad?
In 1942. And while that isn't an exhaustive list of Alaska's modern history, it does provide a strong overview of the state's initial settlement and rising importance.
Yep,
and well, as they say, the show must go on. Because frankly, I would argue that what's happened in Alaska since its statehood is even more important. That's because oil was first discovered in Alaska just 2 years before it became a US state, permanently altering Alaska's role in American society. See, while oil was first discovered only at Swanson River, further oil deposits were quickly found across the state of Alaska, solidifying the state as a hotspot for one of the most important natural resources in modern times. Of course, like Hawaii, Alaska isn't part of the contiguous United States. No, in a perfect world, it's about 500 miles from the state of Washington, but travel between the lower 48 and Alaska requires passage through Canadian provinces, making that trip from Washington more along the lines of a couple thousand miles in reality. That incredible distance to the lower 48 necessitated the Trans-Alaskan Pipeline, completed in 1977, but only after a remarkable level of setbacks, pushback, and payoffs. Seriously, I could make an entire video on Alaska's history as the American epicenter for valuable resources. But the point here is that the discovery of significant oil reserves in Alaska largely coincided with the rising popularity of internal combustion engines. with the discovery of oil there happening at a time where lawmakers in Washington, D.C. were already pushing for Alaska to officially join the Union. But this video is about why nobody lives in the state of Alaska, not the state's establishment, so I think we've already spent enough time looking at Alaska's initial settlement. By the year of 1970, Alaska's population had grown from 226,000 residents a decade before to 300,000 residents, with most of those residents living in Alaskan urban cores where the oil and construction economy were thriving. That represents a healthy population growth rate of about 32% from 1960 to 1970. However, even if Alaska had continued growing at such a rapid rate from 1970 to today, the state would still only have a population of about 1.1 million residents. That would be a substantial increase of about 34% compared to the state's actual current population of 732,000 residents, but even then, Alaska would still be one of the least populated US states despite its ginormous size. Of course, that growth rate didn't hold up though, as the state of Alaska is significantly short of even 1 million residents today. I believe there are several reasons for that, for Alaska's small population and very low population density. I'm sure you already know that much of it comes down to Alaska's geography and climate because, while Alaska's geography and climate differ from region to region, like any place else, on the whole, the state of Alaska is brutally cold and mountainous, with harsh topography that's often frozen and difficult to traverse. With an average statewide temperature range of 0 degrees to negative 30 degrees Fahrenheit from November to March. And Alaska is home to 17 of the 20 tallest mountain peaks in the United States, along with more than 3 million lakes and a whopping 3,000 rivers. Not to mention the significant seismic activity there, something that has been
I actually forgot about that.
The state for more than a century now, with Alaska having more earthquakes than any other region of the United States. It isn't just the natural disadvantages that go along with being one of the northernmost major settlements in the world, deeply separated from the rest of the United States, that has limited Alaska's population so severely though. But before I dive further into why nobody lives in Alaska, I think it's important to look at why 736,000 people do. First, I would say Alaska offers its residents and businesses some real financial incentives. It's one of only 8 US states without an individual income tax, and the Alaska Permanent Fund literally pays residents just for living there through a small portion of the state's excess annual oil revenues. As Alaska runs at a surplus, a rarity in today's world, and something that provides for less economic concern, as residents of several other states are stuck worrying about what their representatives will do to cover rising expenses, while Alaskans are able to collect part of their state's excess investment income every year. Alaska also has a comfortable median household income of about $80,000 and a modest median home price of $338,000.
But the prices of like food and stuff are expensive.
Does well for itself with tourism, oil and gas, construction, and real estate. In fact, Alaska has a total GDP of nearly $50 billion and the nation's 6th highest per capita GDP of nearly $70,000. Then again, while the numbers in Alaska make a lot of sense, I would argue that it's the state's uniquely beautiful nature, open spaces, and focus on personal freedom that attracts more people than anything else. Though I'm sure some folks really just enjoy the Arctic winter. Because while Alaska has more coastline than all of the lower 48 states combined, much of it is frozen. So swimming and sunbathing aren't really the vibe there. No, Alaska's culture is more rugged, and while culture there is generally more regional, I will say that individualism, nature, and recreation are the central themes. If you would like to see more of a regional breakdown of Alaska where I spend more time talking about livability and opportunity in the state's principal cities, like Anchorage, Fairbanks, and Juneau, please let me know in the comments section below. While this is the longest video I've ever made here at Something Different Films, I feel like I'm only scratching the surface of America's most unique state. But there are other reasons that Alaska has lost residents from its peak in 2016. That the state has only grown by 2.6% since 2010, and that it's remained one of the least populated places in the US since its founding. And we already talked about the harsh and lengthy winters there, the difficult topography that makes daily life so complicated, and the remoteness of Alaska in general, all of which are important factors to Alaska's limited population for sure. I would argue that it's also Alaska's very late start, as it was the last US state to join the Union just 63 years ago. It's the fact that much of Alaska's vast landmass is owned by the government, corporate interests, or is unusable due to geographic complications. While affordable housing and good income there can't keep pace with the ever-rising cost of goods due to the complicated nature of shipping and warehousing outside of the traditional grid. Alaska is dark and icy, it lacks city amenities, and the wildlife there isn't always, let's just say, a feature.
The last part was really funny. But yeah, it's something that obviously you kind of have to take into consideration how far it is, and the climate, the whole geography, and to kind of check it. I know it's massive, and obviously, where's the map? There you go, map. You're gonna open? You're not going to open? Hello? Okay, Google Maps, let's go. Okay, here we are. So, console, and why I have everything in Spanish? What? No, that's alright. Google Maps. Hey, that's just weird. Okay, I was like, I'll have to map Google Maps. There you go. And there you go. And we have English. And we are. Oh, yeah, there you go. So you can see how big it is. This is the continuous United States. This is Hawaii here. Alaska here, Ireland is here, Poland is here, and this is how big it is. But I was kind of looking, like, he's shown some maps, and you can see that honestly it is all kind of like, there's mostly like, except maybe Fairbanks here. I guess if you keep going closer there will be some smaller places and things like that, but most of the bigger ones are just on the coast. But look how far some of them are, like this. That's really like so far out. Let's see what we can do about that. Like, let's learn something about this. So Utqiagvik, located north of the Arctic Circle, that is one. Population 4,383. Formerly known as Barrow, is the borough seat and largest city in the North Slope Borough in the US states of Alaska. Okay, that's very big. Okay, so there are obviously small towns, I would say. Not seriously. There's some cities, but they're mostly towns. But I really thought that there would be more people than that 700,000. There would be like a few million at least. I don't know why, but this is just how my head was working about it. So yeah. Alright, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye!